The year is 3700 BC. The place is Sumer. In ancient Mesopotamia, between the river Tigris and Euphrates, where the desert sands meet the fertile lands, there was a city unlike any other. A city with towering white walls that shimmered under the hot sun. A city whose foundations were laid with such precision that it remained standing for thousands of years. And within its fortified heart sat a palace of unimaginable opulence. In the throne room, at the center of this great palace, adorned with ivory and gold leaf, sat a man whose very presence commanded both reverence and terror. His name was Lugasail, and he was the king of Sumer. But Lugasail was no ordinary ruler. He had seized the throne through cunning and ruthlessness, killing his own brother to take the crown. And now he held the kingdom with an iron fist, crushing anyone who dared defy him. But even as Lugasail basked in the glow of his power, a seed of fear was planted in his heart, a fear that gnawed at his sanity, the fear of death. Now, death, as they say, has a way of catching us all off guard. You could be at the peak of your power, surrounded by all the riches that money can buy. Or you could be a nobody living day to day, never really thinking about the next day. Death waits patiently, lurking around every corner, ready to strike when we least expect it. Lugasail, the mighty king of Sumer, found himself face to face with this grim reaper one fateful day. It wasn't a dramatic affair, no great battles or tragic accidents, just an ordinary day that turned into an extraordinary one when Lugasail realized he would unsee another sunrise. As he lay on his deathbed, his reflection stared back at him, gaunt and haggard. The opulence of the palace seemed distant and unreal, and the bustling city sounded like a muffled roar in his ears. Now, death is a great equalizer. It doesn't care about your social status, wealth, or power. It simply takes what it is owed and leaves nothing but memories behind. Faced with his mortality, Lugasail found himself contemplating life, his life filled with power grabs, betrayals, and endless wars. He had lived a life of conquest and cruelty, leaving a trail of death and destruction in his wake. And now, as he looked back, he realized that in his relentless pursuit of power, he had forgotten the true meaning of being alive. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace floor, Lugasail summoned his most trusted advisor, a wily old man named Ashurbanipal, who had seen many seasons come and go. He wanted to leave a legacy, something to remember him by, not just the bones of a fallen king. He wanted to be immortalized. Ashurbanipal, he rasped, his voice as dry as the desert wind. I have a task for you. The advisor leaned closer, his eyes filled with concern. My king, whatever it is, name it, and it shall be done. Lugasail gestured grandly. I want a tomb, not just any tomb, but one that will outlast the sands of time itself. He paused, gauging his advisor's reaction. A tomb that will make mortals and even gods envious. Ashurbanipal swallowed hard. He knew exactly what the king wanted, the eternal resting place fit for a god. It was a Herculean task, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and endurance. But how could he refuse? The king was already on his deathbed. To refuse was tantamount to signing one's own death warrant. The palace erupted in activity. Craftsmen, architects, and laborers descended upon the city like a swarm of ants, carrying out Lugasail's final wish. They unearthed massive stone blocks from the earth and dragged them to the center of the courtyard. Day and night, the rhythmic clang of hammers echoed as they chiseled intricate patterns on the stones. Elephant tusks were brought in, not as trophies of war, but as building materials. Canals were diverted to provide flowing water for the tomb's gardens. Everything was geared towards creating a spectacle that would defy the boundaries between the mortal and the divine. Meanwhile, Lugasail grew weaker with each passing day, yet his mind remained sharp, constantly devising ways to make his tomb even more spectacular. He wanted precious metals, jewels, and countless artifacts to be buried with him. He ordered scribes to record his deeds, not just the mundane details of his reign, but also tales of his supposed bravery and conquests. He was determined to ensure that future generations would remember him as a god among men. As the tomb neared completion, Lugasail's condition worsened. The end was near. One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, Lugasail summoned Ashurbanipal for the final time. He handed the advisor a small clay tablet, his voice a mere whisper. "When I am gone," he said, "see that these instructions are carried out." Ashurbanipal took the tablet, his heart heavy with foreboding. He knew that once the king was dead, his own life would be in danger. Now, in ancient times, it was common for the pharaohs and emperors to be buried with their attendants, and even slaves were chosen to accompany their master in the afterlife. No one wanted to end up in that pyramid or palace, except perhaps the architects and engineers who got paid handsomely to design the whole thing. But for everyone else, it was usually a one-way ticket to eternity, or at least until someone pillages the site for building material. Anyway, for all those involved in the construction, now that the king was finally dead, they could finally relax. Or so they thought. For after burying the king with all the treasures and accoutrements fit for a god, Ashurbanipal returned to the city. However, as soon as he stepped into the palace, he was arrested and taken before Lugasel's successor. Believe it or not, Lugasel had anticipated even this and prepared for it. You see, Lugasel had two sons, the elder, Imebarajesi, a ruthless young man eager for power, and the younger Amaris, a gentle soul more interested in poetry than politics. Lugasel had always favored Amaris, much to Imebarajesi's resentment. So before his death, he had made sure that his younger son would succeed him. And because of this, Imebarajesi had fled to a neighboring city. With his escape, Ashurbanipal lost favor and became the scapegoat for the new king's paranoia. They blamed him for disobeying the late king's wishes and not dying with him. What did they expect? He was a human, not a bloody Spartan. Nevertheless, Ashurbanipal's fate was sealed. He tried to plead his case, but to no avail. The new king didn't care for excuses. Ashurbanipal was thrown into the same tomb that Lugasel had been buried in, and the entrance was sealed shut with mortar. And so, deep beneath the ground, in the darkness of the tomb, 3 men awaited their fate. One was a king who had murdered his own brother to seize the throne, another an advisor who had served faithfully until his dying breath, and the third, a young poet who had never asked for the burden of kingship. All 3 were united in their impending demise. It's a strange twist of fate, isn't it? A king who had sought immortality only to end up entombed with 2 loyal subjects against his will. A cruel irony of fate. Now, fast forward a few thousand years to present day, archaeologists unearthed the remains of this very tomb, discovering the skeletons of not just the king and his advisor, but also a young man whose skeleton was found clutching a clay tablet. Could it be a record of his poetry? Perhaps, or maybe, just maybe, a record of his father's atrocities that he wanted to share with the world, if only he had lived long enough. This discovery raised more questions than it answered. Who was the young man? Why was he in the tomb? What happened to Lugasel's elder son, Imebarajesi? Historians still debate these questions today, trying to piece together the fragmented history of a lost civilization. All we know for sure is that somewhere beneath the desert sands, in a tomb fit for a god, 3 men await their final rest. Their bones intermingled, their stories lost to time. Their fates intertwined in a tale as old as time itself, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the relentless march of progress. And if you enjoyed this little ditty, then I've got some more for you to check out. I'll leave a link to them in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.